My first time. Take this off. So welcome, everyone. This is our second hybrid meeting. Last month was quite successful. From those who participated via Zoom, we heard that the clarity was great. They really appreciated Terry and Christine Zooming the audience was a big plus. So thank you for that. So I'm Ramona Farrell, and I'm actually president-elect. I'm filling in for Jane today. She and her husband were helping a family member relocate recently. That elderly member has tested positive for COVID, and so they have elected to self-quarantine just to take those safety measures. Appreciate everybody following the Westin's guidelines and wearing a mask coming in. And please do remember after your meals to put your masks back on. Thank you for that. So today we're welcoming all members, guests, the Zoom attendees, and especially Secretary Grimsley and his Legislative Affairs Representative, Candace Terry. Thank you for being here with us. And just a bit of trivia, since we are right on the verge of Veterans Day. Did you realize that you now have 3 officers who are all former Air Force, the President, President-elect, and our Secretary? So don't know if that's happened in the club before, but pretty cool. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with our invocation and pledge. Bert, thank you.
Having retired after 24 years on active duty in the Army, I would make a comment about, they couldn't get into the military, so they joined the Air Force, but I'd never say that in public. A pop quiz. Anybody know why this guy's important? Yeah, that doesn't work it. John McCrae was a doctor and a poet, Canadian. He joined the Canadian Armed Forces right after World War I began, at the age of 41. He was at the Second Battle of Ypres in 1915, and one of his friends was killed on May the 2nd. And McCrae performed the burial for himself, and then noted how all around the graves there in Flanders, poppies were growing amongst the graves. And so McCrae, who was, as I said, a poet as well as a doctor, penned one of the more famous poems in relation to military and war, in Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. For our invocation today, I'd like to use a litany for veterans. That was, I've found, I've got files full of all sorts of stuff. It's amazing what you do with 24 years as an Army chaplain. And this was published originally in 2009 by a civilian pastor named Rob McCoy. And this is the Litany for Veterans. And as I go through, I'm going to ask certain people to stand. If it applies to you, please stand, and then that's the way we'll get everybody to stand up at an appropriate time. Let us pray. God of love, peace, and justice, it is your will for the world that we may live together in peace. You have promised through the prophet Isaiah that one day the swords will be beaten into plowshares. Yet we live in a broken world, and there are times that war seems inevitable. Let us recognize with humility and sadness the tragic loss of life that comes in war. Even so, as we gather here, free from persecution, we may give thanks for those who have served with courage and honor. So please rise, those that are in our presence that are either in active duty or reserve duty, or the fathers, mothers, siblings, spouses, grandparents of those currently serving. God, we praise you for those that are willing to serve. Let all soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen serve with honor, pride, and compassion. Do not let their hearts be hardened by the actions they must take. Strengthen their families. Keep them surrounded in your love and peace. Please rise, those that are in our presence who have served in the military in the past. God, we praise you for those who have served in the military. We thank you for those that put the welfare of others ahead of their own safety. Let us all be inspired by their self-sacrifice and service to those who needed protection. Please rise, those that are in our presence who have lost a loved one in war. God, we praise you for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. We ask that you comfort those who will still feel the pain of their loss. Keep us mindful that you have promised to comfort those that mourn. Please rise, those who have gathered in your name in safety because of the sacrifice of others. God, we praise you for granting us these freedoms. Let us honor those who have served by working for peace. Let us never forget those who have served, and let us never let go of your promise of peace. Amen. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? And remember your punctuation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated.
It is my pleasure to welcome our guests today. So when I call your name, if you would stand up, and we can welcome you as we look at you face to face, because we're so excited that we get to do that. We have Frederick Turner, who is a guest of the absent Jane Dyer. Thank you for coming without her. We have Mastin Robeson, who is a guest of Charlie Hall. Glad to have you here. John McDonough, guest of Scott Powell. Nice to meet you, John. Ryan, I might butcher this one, Carrer, who is a guest of the club. Close? You have too many letters for that. Please change your name. Okay, sorry. It's K-A-R-R-E-R. Now, how would you pronounce that? Pam Adams, who is a retired Navy guest of Chantel Babb. Very glad to have you. And Candace Terry, who we know comes with our speaker today, another guest of Charlie Hall. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm so happy to be here standing in front of all of you today. I'm a little exposed without this mask on. It's rare these days I get to go out in public and stand without my face being covered. I am here today to celebrate, number one, being a Rotarian. It's my second year, and I cannot tell you how Rotary has impacted my life in three really great ways. Number one, I've made lifelong friends. Number two, I've had solid business leads. And number three, I've done really good things for my community. So today I'm here to talk about my ask. We need your help. Rotary Club of Greenville. First of all, I want to thank y'all for being here because it's been such a hard year. And I want to thank y'all for hanging on. We've lost some members this year because COVID-19 has kind of taken away the opportunity to be here. And a lot of people enjoy being here. So I thank you all for holding on. Our charities appreciate it. We appreciate it. And I'm asking you today to help us We need to fill the seats. I'm happy to see who's here, but we need more people to come. So I am here to ask you 3 things today, and I'd like to tell you it's not going to cost you any money. So you should all be really excited about that. Number 1, by a show of hands, I'd like to know who here is on LinkedIn. And according to our 4-way test, is it true? I would like honest answers. LinkedIn, hands up. Thank you. Okay, by a show of hands, who here is following Rotary Club of Greenville? Thank you for those who are following Rotary Club of Greenville. My first ask today is very easy. Those of you, pick up your little phone and open your LinkedIn app and look up Rotary Club of Greenville and follow us. Take you just a second. And if you don't have your phone, which would really surprise me, you can do it when you get home. My second ask today, who here is on Facebook? Y'all know where I'm going, right? Who here is following Rotary Club of Greenville on Facebook? Thank you. Pick up your phone, open your Facebook app, and follow Rotary Club of Greenville. 2 out of 3, easy, easy. My third ask today, share Rotary. This month we are doing a membership push, asking each of you to help fill the seats with people that you respect, your friends, your colleagues. My ask is, now that you are following Rotary Club of Greenville on LinkedIn and Facebook, you are going to send an invitation to just 3 of your contacts. If you look today, we have posted our next Discover Rotary, which there's 2 in the morning and the evening. And we have also posted on Facebook and LinkedIn our next meeting. I'm going to ask that you go to the post and you're going to just share, click share. For those of you who don't know how to do this, it's really easy. Share, and it's going to take you to your contacts. Pick 3 people you think you would like to see here at Rotary and send the invitation. Those who are socially distanced with social networking, it's okay. You can pick up the phone and you can call 3 friends. Invite 3 people. Jane Dyer has asked us just to make the invite. That's all you have to do. We're not asking you to push them here. Just make the invite. I appreciate all your help, and I look forward to growing our social network. By the way, LinkedIn, we have 121 followers, so hopefully tomorrow I will see at least 200. And Facebook now, we're up to 640. So I'm really happy that we've been sharing, and I really want to make next year and the upcoming years as good as it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. A challenge of 3. It's good. So for our announcements, just a reminder, we have Rotary Park cleanup. It's November 14th from 8:30 to 11:30, and you can sign up via the city website. We also have, to change reminders, a reminder to generously give to CART for Alzheimer's research. There's a link and also information on our DAC-DB. And again, to Teresa's sharing Rotary via social media, please invite 3 of your friends to a Discover Rotary evening, which is on November 17th, or right before our meeting on November 24th. November 19th is a networking at noon meeting. That's a small group networking event. We have November 24th, our district governor, Beth Paget, who's our own club member, and this year's district governor will be our guest speaker. And then with regard to our Read to Me program, I wanted to report back that for the month of October, we have now read over 30 books. So keep that up. Thank you.
So I don't know whether to preface this with this remark or whether I should say this to the end, but I really I'm going to counter Teresa, who one of the first things she said was that this is not going to cost you any money. So I'm going to talk to you about the Rotary Foundation. And this is the 3rd in our series of spotlights on the foundation, when we're going to be able to provide context and stories and some videos to just help us understand the work and the significance of the foundation and how it applies not only to the world, which obviously it does, but also to our Rotary Club. So today we're going to talk specifically about how the Rotary Foundation affects our community here in Greenville. So November is Rotary Foundation Month, with special opportunities actually to quadruple a contribution that you would make if you make that to Polio Plus. The Kaufman family is giving a match into of gifts that are $100 or more. That will then be matched twice by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so that your $100 contribution or any contribution you make, $100 and up, gets to $400. So just think about that. And that is all to Polio Plus. But I'm also going to talk about gifts to sort of the annual fund of the foundation too. And those are the ones that really come back to our district. So how does the Rotary Foundation affect? A reminder of the foundation's vision, which is doing good in the world. And there are 6 causes. They were formerly known as the focus areas. They're now called causes. And they address 6 of the world's greatest humanitarian needs. And they include promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, saving mothers and children, supporting education and literacy, and growing local economies. And so the money that is raised for these efforts all over the world, including right here, are raised from Rotary clubs, Rotary districts, and individuals. And these funds are then, they go through the foundation and then they're allocated back to the local clubs and districts and global grants. So today we're going to focus on education and that particular area. So one of the phrases that Rotary likes to use is that Rotarians are people of actions. So I'm going to share one example of the impact of Rotary clubs in New Orleans and their project and what they were able to do. And this example is closer to home than it may appear.
Easton is the oldest public high school in the city of New Orleans. It breathes the city because it holds a lot of tradition. When you look towards the school, you see this castle. And within this kingdom, everybody is a family.
We travel from place to place, you know, trying to figure out where could we go, because, you know, New Orleans is our home.
I grew up in Uptown.
You know, New Orleans is our home.
I moved to Hammond, Louisiana.
I grew up in New Orleans, born and raised. Had to evacuate to Dallas, Texas, about 8 hours away.
We were determined that we were going to make it. If this school didn't make it, the city wouldn't.
It is no either or, correct? It is both.
Every child had a book and every child had a seat.
Okay, he said it's 20 degrees Celsius.
Because science is just or more important.
It was a beacon.
Got it?
Got it.
And it gave momentum to others that wanted to come back and open schools. It could not have happened without everybody working together and saying, you know, this is our city, this is our school.
without the school, where do we have to go? I mean, to get an education and to possibly venture out into other worlds and come back and help our community. If the school wouldn't have reopened, what future would we have?
The best teachers in the school districts. But we go so much further than that throughout the year. Read to Me is one example of our effort to improve literacy by reading to groups of children. Now we do it by video, but also showing them some other role models than they might ordinarily see. And last year, under the leadership of Scott Powell, we adopted Alexander Elementary School. Alexander is a Title I school where 100% of those kids qualify for free and reduced lunch, reflecting their economic level. 8% of those students are homeless, and a majority of them qualify for special services in the social, in the medical, and in the economic help, as well as in academics. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit more about what Alexander Elementary means to us, and maybe what we mean to them. So this is a look at Alexander's mission: to build a community to embrace, engage, empower everyone every day. By the way, their mascot is an eagle. So we got all these E's flying in that particular mission statement. I sort of like that. Their beliefs are pretty much as expected, I think, of most schools. But I was especially struck by these last two that are highlighted there in yellow. That children have the right to learn in a safe, orderly, and nurturing environment. And we are partners with our families and community. Rotary Club is one of those partners. There are obvious differences between the school that you saw in New Orleans and Alexander Elementary. The Louisiana school was a high school. Alexander is for elementary students, like this kindergartner. The school in Louisiana was this castle. Alexander is not a castle, but it's definitely a home for its students. The Louisiana school's Rotary volunteers serve the school with hands-on projects to restore its interior after Hurricane Katrina forced the schools to close in order to get the kids back. Our club's hands-on projects have been a little bit more modest, perhaps, but just as impactful, maybe in a different way. We turned a stark, no-nonsense faculty bathroom into a place with soothing color and some art, just to show Alexander teachers that we respect and we value them. We also tried to express our appreciation for them by serving the teachers lunch, and some Rotarians did that while the other brave souls stayed in the cafeteria with the kids and tried to keep them occupied and safe. We had Happy Feet Day again this year, even despite the pandemic, and we managed to bring smiles behind masks to 40 children who were recommended by Alexander Elementary in need of new shoes. And I'm sure you can tell that behind that mask is a big, big, big smile. How could you not be happy? And then there's much more that can be done and that we would like to do if we can find a way to do it both with our manpower and with our funds. So we will be applying to grants to pay for some of the things that we provide as a partner to Alexander Elementary School. And you can help, especially between now and November 15th, with a gift to the Rotary Foundation. And I just want to explain to you, because it has always been confusing to me, just because, I don't know, it's just been confusing. So here's what happens to our individual gifts to the foundation. $100 to the Rotary International Foundation of it. $50 of that goes back to our district. 45% goes to the World Fund for Projects, and 5% for administration. Now, concentrating on that 50% that goes to our district, up to 25% of that can come right back to this club for projects that we are trying to do. So here is how the grants are funded. The grant process is pretty competitive. Obviously, we have to align with the focus areas, the causes for Rotary. But beyond that, the amount of the grant that we are eligible to receive depends on our per capita level to the foundation. Has nothing to do with the size of our club. Last year, we were again stuck at this level. So we are able to this year apply for a grant of $2,500. If we were to submit a grant today, that's where we would be. We missed a $5,000 grant by just about $7 per capita last year. So the best time to make a difference is right now. By November 15th, that grant to Polio Plus can be quadrupled, but any time is a good time if you are able to give something to the Rotary Foundation. And I just want you to, one more time, listen to how support can impact our community, and in particular, can impact education.
It could not have happened without everybody working together and saying, you know, this is our city, this is our school.
Without the school, where do we have to go? I mean, to get an education and to possibly venture out into other worlds and come back and help our community. If the school wouldn't have reopened, what future would we have?
Or a pandemic, the urgency to make sure that students have access to education is paramount to the rest of their lives. It's paramount. So we can do our part. This is our city. Alexander is our school. And the time is now, please. Thanks.
Can you hear me better? There we go. Okay, maybe I need to step a step further. I want to piggyback off the last speaker and speak about Alexander Elementary. It's the time of year for Thanksgiving, and we're doing the Thanksgiving meal for Alexander families next week. Originally supposed to be on the 23rd, but due to school letting out early this year, we pushed it back to Friday, the 20th. We're going to meet at Alexander Elementary and package meals to give to selected families that may not have Thanksgiving dinner. It's about 40 families that we're going to feed for Thanksgiving, and we're going to feed for Christmas. So if you would like to come over that day at 4 o'clock and help us package the meals, it'll be greatly appreciated. Everything is going well with the purchasing of the food, the logistics and everything is fine. We just want people to come and have fun and pack food for families. It's Friday the 20th. So it's not this Friday, but next Friday. It's at Alexander. So you can sign up on DAC-CB, and we can meet there and get everything done. All right, thanks a lot.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm filling in for Ryan Thackeray, who has skipped town to go to Charleston. And he says it's work. I doubt it. I'm going to give you the announcements for Rotary. And first off, for excellent invocation, and double down on that and say for all active military here and online and all veterans, we appreciate your service greatly. My dad was a veteran. So was my father-in-law. Excuse me. I need to give Charlie Hall a great shout out. We were not in person in June, but the Greenville News Community hero, Charlie, was honored for advocacy for role for veteran, Marine veteran, and his organization is the Upstate Warrior Solution. So a shout out to Charlie for the great work that he does. That is awesome. Also, along the veteran line, Grady Patterson hit the daily doubles, so to speak, in October. Many of you may not know this. Grady's also one of those that didn't get in the military. He got in the Air Force. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve after many years of active duty, and obviously many years in the Air Force Reserve. and he was promoted to CEO of his firm, Veris Research. The unfortunate thing is we're going to lose him to New Mexico sometime next year. He's going to be around for a little while, but it was great news for him. And I told him when I saw him at Topgolf that he needed to go buy a lottery ticket because October obviously was a great month for him. But now he has to sell it to his wife to move to Albuquerque. That may be difficult. Our member Kathy McAfee was accepted to be an election poll worker volunteer for last week's election. She was inspired by her grandmother, Rosario Dolores Garcia, I think I pronounced that all correctly, who, after becoming a naturalized citizen in the U.S. in 1942 at the age of 29, went on to serve her community as an election poll worker in Los Angeles. Maybe we should have sent Kathy to one of the other states to help get all these votes counted, and we wouldn't have this mess that we're in currently. Yeah, little election, I know. Don't look at me that way. Also, some other good news. Ramona Farrell, president-elect, has left Greer Walker to start her own firm. It's Farrell Insights. Send all your business to Ramona. Congratulations and good luck. Also, Christine Braswell Amin has left Carter Smith Merriam Rogers and Traxler Law Firm to start her own firm, Amin Family Law and Mediation LLC over in Greer. I've seen her office. It's gorgeous. Go over and take all your family law concerns to Christine. Also, I've got a couple of anniversaries that are of particular note. Rotarian Elizabeth Garrison Razor, am I pronouncing that right? Her and her family celebrated Denver Downs' 150th anniversary year this year. The family farm started just after the Civil War, and more recently, 40 of the farm's 350 acres have been turned into a family-friendly playground, including 12-acre corn maze, zip lines, a goat pen, other elaborate playgrounds and attractions to exhaust the kids, which in these days, that's probably pretty important. If you haven't checked it out, go to Denver Downs and it's highly recommended. Congratulations to Elizabeth and the entire Garrison family on 150 years of agriculture in the upstate. That's excellent. Also, another anniversary, Rush Wilson Limited is celebrating 70 years in business. It was founded by Rush's father in Davidson, North Carolina, who later moved here to Greenville. Rush's father was a member of the club and a multiple Paul Harris Fellow. His son Rush and grandson Jay are in our club. Congratulations to the entire Wilson family on this amazing milestone. Don't forget to visit them for your fine men's clothing and accessory needs. And that's it. Thanks much.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm Charlie Hall. I've been with the club for about 6 years now. Before I introduce General Grimsley, I'd like to mention two things. There's a couple Marines in the room. Today's the 245th birthday of the Marine Corps. Marines always like to take the glory away from the other branches. So the day before Veterans Day, the Marine Corps just happens to have a birthday. So for all of you Marines in the room, happy 245th. And I'm really glad, secondly, that Candace Terry can be here with the Secretary. Candace is a Navy vet. She was a linguist, but she's also the past student veteran president at Carolina. She used her GI Bill there at Carolina and got her social work degree. So, sir, good job hiring a social worker to be your legislative affairs person. I know that Candace has already impressed us, and we love social workers at Upstate Warrior Solution and know that they can do anything. So, Candace, really glad that you're here with the Secretary today. General Grimsley, quickly, is a Davidson grad. He served 33 years in the Army, retired as a Major General in 2013. For those of you that have Citadel connections, you may recognize the Grimsley name. So you might get into a bit of that, but General Grimsley's father is a past president of the Citadel, really helped the Citadel through some rocky years from what I understand. General Grimsley was in combat multiple times, was awarded the Silver Star, multiple Bronze Stars, as well as the Purple Heart. So has been there and done that for sure. General Grimsley was appointed and confirmed by unanimous vote in March to be our first Secretary of Veterans Affairs, which is a new cabinet level position for Governor McMaster. So for those of us that work in the veteran space, this is a long time in coming. General Grimsley started as soon as COVID hit, but has really been out in the field getting to know all the different agencies and organizations that work with veterans. Really excited to hear from him today and to hear about his strategy on how to take the department forward. So, sir, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you all for inviting me here. I was going to wish our Marine Corps birthday, happy birthday too. Sorry, you look great for 245. Charlie, I'm not so sure about, but we really appreciate it. You know, the finest, hardest fighting, fiercest expeditionary fighting force the world's ever known as the United States Marine Corps. So extraordinarily proud. My older son was a Marine for 4 years. So extraordinarily proud to have the opportunity to recognize one of our sister services on their great birthday. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to join y'all here today. Yes, I'm a Davidson graduate. Yes, my dad was president of Citadel, and those two things don't usually go together. But imagine being a knob at the Citadel when your dad's the vice president and then the president. There would have been no joy in my fourth class life. And so we made the mutual agreement that I would go somewhere else, as long as I took ROTC the first 2 years, because like many, I was a very indisciplined young man. And so he realized that, so that was the family rule. And then I walked in the military in 1980 and no idea of ever going on active duty or staying once I was in there. And 33 years later, I walked out. But it's been an extraordinarily gratifying life, and looking back on my life now in the 7 years since I retired, I can't imagine having done anything differently, quite frankly. And so being able to talk about veterans and Veterans Day here in Greenville this week is especially fitting. And it's just a huge opportunity to celebrate all of our veterans who, for all of us, over 245 years of our history, have been the ones out front taking care of us all and providing us the opportunity. And so I'm going to break this down into a couple, 3 parts. First, I'd like to talk about veterans. Then I'd like to talk about the brand new Department of Veterans Affairs and who we are and where we're headed, and then close it with just a couple of thoughts. And so on veterans, and I didn't turn around when I should have, but how many veterans are in the room across all services and components? Yeah, okay. So that's not unsurprising to me in this great state. Of the 405,000 plus veterans in South Carolina, just a little south of the 10% of our overall population, I would say that I, as a veteran and on behalf of our citizens, have a very simple yet heartfelt message. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you stand for, because it's all of you. Selfless service in peacetime and war here in the nation and throughout the world makes the difference. And regardless of whatever era you served in, you've paid a price for the freedoms that we all enjoy. You know, your example inspires others who today follow in your footsteps. And as we gather here today, please forget that there are men and women, young men and women, current serving and soon to be veterans on land, at sea, in the air, in over 100 nations, on every sea of the world, and in the air everywhere around the world, making sure we have the opportunity to come here and enjoy a lunch and fellowship in Greenville on a Tuesday afternoon. So our veterans pay with courage and honor. They've defended America through the best and worst of times, and they've performed their duties tirelessly, difficult duties tirelessly, with little fanfare or recognition. They seek neither fortune nor fame. They do it out of a love of country and liberty, and that compels them to serve this great nation of ours and allows us to be who we are. And so we salute our veterans for this selfless service and their ability to triumph over adversity. You know, those of us who have been there, we understand what it's like to mount guard in the chill of night while others sleep. We understand the meaning of hardship and standing watch at freedom's frontier, far from loved ones. Many of us have seen the horrors of war and catastrophe, and yet somehow they and all of us continue to endure. And it's endurance and devotion to duty that gives us the strength today. And it inspires today's military men and women to serve. You know, when you look out in the world today, you can see how this unbroken line of heroes continues the work of veterans from our past. And so it's in that spirit of honoring our veterans, military members, and families that I would like to take a few minutes to talk about our newly formed South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs and our vision for the future. So I'm going to throw a couple statistics at you, and you may have heard these, and if you have, I apologize up front, but it might be telling on how we look at veterans and serving military members today, or might be different from what you think. And I'll quickly distance South Carolina somewhat from the average state in the United States, because we tend to be much more military veteran friendly than some of our other states. But the statistics are pretty telling. So as we sit here today, less than 3 out of 10 Americans are eligible to serve in the uniforms of the United States across all components and all uniforms. So that's the 6 services today: Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and our newly formed Space Force, active duty, National Guard, Reserve. And I say that only 3 in 10 or slightly south of 3 in 10 can serve because the rest are ineligible. They can't pass the physical standards, they can't pass the intellectual standards, or they have what we in the military call bad paper. They can't pass the moral standards. They've been arrested or incarcerated or some other reason. So less than 3 out of 10. Now couple that with the fact, couple that with the fact that since 9/11/2001, less than 1% of the population of the United States of over 330 million Americans have served or are serving in any of the 6 uniforms or in any of the 3 components. So when you take that group together, even adding immediate and extended family members, what you have in the United States today is a very wide divide between those of us who have served or are serving, or the family members of that category, and the rest of the population. So too often what happens when you mention that you're a veteran, you work with veterans, you're in the military, or you're a family member of a military member, immediately many Americans will start hanging their head, wringing their hands and say, "Oh, you poor veterans. You just have such a terrible life. You're separated all the time. You can't keep your families together. You know, I hear this notion about PTSD and homelessness and suicide and drug addiction or alcohol addiction." Well, I will tell you that any one of us who have served can find somebody who matches that description. That category of citizen is out there, and it's a tragedy. It's a national tragedy. But that doesn't typify the average one of us. The average one of us, like y'all out here, are reasonably well-adjusted people. We're good citizens. We know how to do a lot of things. We belong to Rotary. We're elected officials. We're appointed officials. We belong to our church or temple or synagogue. We raise good kids. We're fit, motivated, disciplined, well-educated, well-trained. We know how to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. We know how to be in charge. We know how to follow. We know how to form teams to solve complex problems. That's your veteran today. And that's the population that's resident throughout South Carolina. And that's the message we're trying to change the narrative on when we think about veterans and how we support them in South Carolina, not just in this department, because believe me, I'm a political appointee, but I'm a professional soldier, and I'm not one who believes government can solve everything. In fact, problems like our challenge with veterans and their narrative are solved by local community leaders like your mentor program and other things that are done at the community level. That's where we come together to solve problems, and that's what we need to do in this department, is better enable you to both identify the challenges and be able to maneuver resources to needs. So we need to change the narrative. And so we're defining success in this department, we, the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs, as a veteran population that is mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually sound. So when Charlie said we like social workers, we really like the social determinants of health, because that's how you get to the left side of a problem before somebody starts to descend down into a piece of despair that comes naturally with life. We want to be able to get resources applied to needs to preclude that from ever happening. So we want that population that matches that. And that takes a wide variety of things, from handover of transition out of service and uniform into civilian life, to acceptance into the community, to be able to be part of a church or a temple or a synagogue, to have a job commensurate with their background, skills, or experience, or live in a good neighborhood and make sure that they're well taken care of. That's all part of the solution here that we need to work on. So that's the first part of the definition. The second is that our veterans are well taken care of and satisfied with the dignified manner in which they've been treated. That has everything to do with access to benefits and how they get accepted back into communities and put into the right kinds of jobs and many other things. The third is that they continue to be proud of their service. Too often we take off our uniform and we forget. We forget what we did and how we did it. And so we want to continually reflect on that and be proud of our service, because a person who is not in uniform anymore is the best recruiter for the next generation of veterans by virtue of how they act out in the local community. And the fourth, and perhaps for this group, the most important, is we want to make sure that our fellow citizens recognize our veterans as continued proud and contributing members of the South Carolina community and the nation. That's how we continue to perpetuate this over time. And so I think it's important that we really work hard to pull all these things together. And we've developed a little campaign plan that I won't bore you with, but I do believe it's all about bringing a community of partners together to assist our veterans in gaining the maximum benefit on the entitlements that they've earned. I think it's all about integrating the effects of community and local and governmental and non-governmental, from federal to state to county to community to local, and all of the nonprofits like Upstate Warrior Solutions, which is one of our absolute best nonprofit partners in the state to get things done, and others like them to come together to integrate those effects to really take care of our veteran population now and long into the future. And it's not just veterans, it's our family members, it's our active Guard and Reserve military members currently serving who will be our future veterans. And then it's all about advocating for our veterans and their family, advocating for legislation, it's advocating for progress, just simple things like the legislature last year passing the military spouse licensing and credentialing bill that allows our family members, when they transition from one base to another, to go instantly into a job where they might have a license. My wife is a human resources professional for our entire married life once the kids went back to school. And until the day I retired, reluctantly, after I retired, we moved 22 times in 33 years. She started over every time we moved. That's just a tough road to hoe when you're trying to keep people in the service and keep them continuing to go and feel like they're part of a community. So it's those very simple kinds of things that make just a huge difference. So thank you to our members of the General Assembly and the governor for signing into the law. That makes a huge difference. And then the fourth one is to inform and educate. We can change the narrative if we better display who we are, not just in our words, but in our deeds, and really get out and interact with our civilian population. So we spread the education of who we are and the value that we bring back into South Carolina. You probably know this, so again, I'll bore you with the statistic, but there are three major sources of revenue for South Carolina. The first one is our ports. The trimodal that brings goods in and out of Charleston and the other ports is a huge part. The third is tourism. The second is the United States military and our veteran population. $25.3 billion in the South Carolina economy every year. It's COVID proof, it's tornado proof, it's hurricane proof down where I live in Beaufort, it's flood proof if you're in the PD. And that kind of money comes in all the time. The more we grow the military presence, the more we encourage our veterans and their families to stay here, the larger that slice of revenue will come, which just brings us all to a better place in life. So we need to continue to do all of these things together because that's how we're going to grow this. And that's how we think we're going to be able to do this. And it takes a coalition of people, a coalition of groups, and a coalition of the willing to pull together using established measures of performance and effectiveness where we can grade our work and really, really propel this forward. So we owe that to our veterans. About 45% of the population veteran population of South Carolina is older than 65. Their needs are different from our younger veterans. The way they approach life is different from our veterans. And so we have as a department to really change how we do business to better support them across the age demographics, across race, and across the state. So we get the same level of service here in Greenville County that you get, in some of our adjacent counties. And it's very different if you go out in some of our rural counties and the level of service that we provide them out there. We need to level this playing field. Every veteran in South Carolina, his or her family member, deserves the same standard of service and care, regardless of the county in which they live or the economic situation they find themselves in. That's how we're going to tackle this together. And so we think we really need to do that, but the challenges that face us are not drastically different from the ones the veterans faced in the past. So as we're in this era today, in this what seems to be persistent conflict, our armed forces are confronting the enemy with the same vigor that they've always displayed. The horrors of 9/11 19 years ago demonstrated to many that we can't take past peace and prosperity for granted. But veterans already knew this. We know our nation was founded not on the guarantees of the past, but the promises of the future. And that's how I think we need to think about this. So what we have to resolve as a state and a nation is continue to keep faith with our veterans and take care of them. And I'm going to steal this from somebody else, so this is not original to me. But if you think about the Great Seal of the United States, at the top is E Pluribus Unum, from many one. That's who we are. And then there's a very proud eagle displayed with wings wide open. And if you look down in that eagle's talons, very tightly grasped, on one side is an olive branch, on the other side is a quiver of 13 arrows. The eagle always looks first at the olive branch. We're a nation who loves peace, who aspires to have peace, and that's what we want in our country, but outside our country as well. That's what we aspire to have and promote. But we're not afraid to use the arrows. And sometimes the eagle might have to look at the arrows in order to be able to ensure that peace, certainly to be ready for them. And that's why it's the 13 arrows. And the 13 arrows can represent a wide variety of things. It can represent our capabilities and, great fighting vehicles and airplanes and satellites and ships and carriers and all of the things our nation provides for our military to do it. But at the very tip of that arrow, what really makes it all happen are people. And those are people who are willing to stand up, as many of us did, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That's who your veteran population is. Those are people, regardless of era, regardless of component, regardless of branch of service, have been willing to do that on behalf of all of us. I think it's time to recommit ourselves to that same kind of principle from many one, that we keep people in the forefront of this entire thing. So I'm a big fan of President Teddy Roosevelt, and I often use this quote, and it goes, and he said it a bunch of different times in a bunch of slightly different ways. So it must be enduring because you can find it in a lot of places. But President Roosevelt once said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs and comes short again, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, the highs and lows, who spends himself on a worthy cause, and who in the end, at worst if he fails, at least fails while doing so greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." Well, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, I would offer that there are no cold and timid souls among our community of veterans. They are just a batch of heroes, great patriots who've done their duty to family and country, who provide a legacy of freedom, of selflessness that is the true foundation of our country. And they entered that arena and never took it off, even after they took off the uniform. Their deeds and actions are the stuff of history books, and I believe the right stuff that allows us to continue to be the shining example of freedom throughout the world. And so I would offer that as we resolve to continue to thank and support all of their veterans, we do that every day, not just on Veterans Day. And remember that veterans' military families also pay a price for that freedom. They endure the long deployments, missed birthdays and anniversaries, watch loved ones go, many of whom never return. And yet through this all, they support us, they love us, and stand by us through the joys and sorrows, the highs and lows. And we may never be able to say thank you enough, but we can always support them. And so it's for these reasons and many more that I feel extraordinarily privileged to be the first Secretary of Veterans Affairs in this great state, to follow my family's tradition of a lot of years in this state, across the state. My parents were born and raised in Florence. To be able to give back to the state whatever good things I got from the family I got, the opportunities I got from serving in the military, to be able now to give back to our state in a manner that I never expected to be possible, but for which I'm extraordinarily grateful. And so thank you for this. And remember always, as I said before, that the greatest treasure of the United States, those people, American sons and daughters, are out there on behalf of all of us every day. So thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. God bless you all. God bless our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and I can't quite figure out what to call the Space Force people yet. But so Space Force people at home and deployed for behalf of us all today. And God bless America. I don't know if you have questions.
So Secretary Grimsley, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your words of wisdom, your vision for the Department of Veterans Affairs, especially how we might all embrace and do things to benefit our veteran community. So thank you. With that, we're going to do our four-way test. For our guests and visitors, there's a banner right there for you to recite if that's helpful to you. So if you'll please join me. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you for attending today.